into the unknown, into the unseen, the unexplainable, and the unbelievable. Join our strange journeys. Are you ready? And we are back live once again on the worldwide thingamajigger web, stuff that they call it on the internets. And we're, for the first time ever, we're having a technical difficulty. I don't know what's happened, but Facebook has dropped out and I can't fix it. I don't know why. And I was trying to fix it while the intro was going on. And I don't know. We'll just have to download this and post it to Facebook later. I think I know why, but I don't have time to fix it or explain it. So we're going to go on. We're going to go on with our 10th show of season 2, which is also, folks, get this, our first anniversary on May. Well, I'll get into that. As we've been doing this a year, let me introduce everybody. To my immediate left is Tim Shepard, one of the ETs, but also he's going to try to help me with co-hosting duties. Down below me is Elizabeth Parker, returning guest. We're going to be talking about her books and just stuff that goes on in her life that is pretty ghostly, supernatural, and paranormal. Over on the left is returning guest Lewis Powell, but this is okay, let's see. Facebook is giving me a pop-up saying that I'm not going live. I'm trying to. Anyway, Lewis has, on last show, he reached the milestone of being a 5-timer special guest, but this time he returns as a member of the executive team. He is now officially an ET. We also have another new ET that just joined the team a few weeks ago. Her name is Selena Miller, but because of her work schedule, she's not able to have been on the show yet, but she's working that out so she can be with us soon. But on January 31st, 2015, Strange Journeys held its first haunted history walking tour in downtown Mobile, Alabama, the first of its kind in this historical city. With a few years of successful tours, it was decided to move in a different direction. After some debate as to whether that direction would be a radio show or a podcast, we formed a team to help us move further. I came across another similar group using this platform of StreamYard and was impressed with the quality of the streaming, so I signed up and we gave it a couple of test runs. But on May 16, 2020, we had our first official live streaming episode. And so technically this Strange Journeys has 2 birthdays. One when it officially started and then one when we officially started streaming. Here we are a year later. We have a website, a merch site, which is strangestuff.live, www.strangestuff.live. I may show that later here. We have patrons on Patreon. That's patreon.com/Strange Journeys. We're streaming first on Facebook, then on YouTube, and now for the first time on Twitch. If you're watching on Twitch, please leave a comment. Let us know you're there. I want to know what's going on because I'm not real familiar with Twitch. Don't know much about it at all. But everybody was saying we need to be on Twitch. So, hey, guys, we're on Twitch. We also have a group for all of our strange friends on Facebook. and a brand new TikTok page, which I don't know much about that either. So, but hey, we have a TikTok page. So, but it's all for you. Let's see where to go. You, the watchers. You're why we do this. So please remember that we provide these shows first and foremost for your entertainment, the watchers. We are not by any means and do not claim to be scholars or experts in any of the topics that we cover. We are simply enthusiasts and storytellers who have fun with these topics while doing our best to respect individual beliefs. And please remember that we are live and nothing is rehearsed or edited out later. Oh, we just got a message that we are now live on Facebook. Cool. Yeah. Awesome. I don't know what happened. What'd you do, Tim? That was great. Whatever you did worked because I haven't full touched it. Please remember that we're live and nothing is rehearsed or edited out later. If you go back and watch any of our old shows, you'll see that is a fact. I do not edit out anything. Only one caveat to that. The powers that be over at YouTube have seen fit to edit out a few segments because they said they were copyright infringements. But rest assured, we're not trying to steal anybody's creative content. I was just picking stuff to put on the show. And so, all right. As we are in our first anniversary, I want to go back real quick and just look over the at least the first season, talk a little bit about that. I'm going to share the screen with you, and I'm going to bring up our playlist from YouTube of season 1. And so if any of you that's here with me on the live stream, if you have a favorite show or a moment from the show that you want to mention, we're going to go over each show real quick and talk about them. The first one, our very first show, and I just realized when I got on here, I had a snippet of the very first few seconds of the show, and I forgot to upload it or something. I don't know. It's not here now, so I thought I had uploaded it. But, uh-oh. We're getting some roaring sounds from somebody. But the first show of the season was Personnel Paranormal. And that was, Tim was on that show, Tommy, and Dagny. And Tommy shared about awakening in the middle of the night and seeing the shadow figure with the black hat. And that gave me the idea for later on where we did a show about the black hat man. Dagny shared about the blue ball of light she saw when she was a youngin', 4 or 5 years old, she said, that she felt like was her guardian angel. And Tim, of course, shared his doppelganger story. Tim, tell us that one real quick, just in just a minute or less.
A minute or less. This actually happened a few years ago at the Topeka Cemetery, the new Topeka Cemetery in Topeka, Kansas, when I was out there with a group that I investigated with. Part of our team was investigating in one area, and my partner is our videographer, and I had seen something where I was dealing with the K2 meter that kept going all the way off and spiking in the middle of the cemetery. And I told him, hey, let's follow it. And I started to trip through the cemetery. He was about 10 feet behind me, to my knowledge. And we walked the entire way through the cemetery, all the way down to where the Vice President Charles Curtis is buried, back up through Mausoleum Row, back down to where the first Archbishop of Kansas was buried. And when I got down there, my wife pulled up in the car and said, hey, you said nobody goes off by themselves. And I said, I didn't. Eric's right here with me. And she said, no, Eric's in the car with me. And so when I looked down into the car, I'm 6'5". When at the time we had a Chevy Cavalier, Eric was sitting in the passenger seat. But whatever had been behind me the entire way was no longer with me. I never saw its face, but I could see the camera going off behind me. So I just assumed it was him. I found out since then that is one of about 250 places in the world that they occur naturally. Um, and there's a team out of Australia that was here just a couple of years ago to investigate it. They actually got 3 photos of it impersonating
Wow.
a member of their group.
Wow. Well, I mean, that story, he told it on that first show, just floored me. And we came back in season 2 and had a show of nothing but doppelgangers. Found out that Andrea had also seen a doppelganger.
Right.
Well, on the second show, it wasn't officially our second show, but it was like a follow-up the next week. We did had a couple more members of the ETs there to tell their stories, and we also did a little tried a Memorial Day special, and my video didn't work. I don't know what I was still learning the program, but Beth shared about seeing the long-haired hippie fellow walk around her kitchen. Her and her mother saw it. Let's see. Christine shared about going into the basement to visit with a grandmotherly figure that would tell her stories when she was a child. And Andrea shared about her and her husband going to that house and taking that picture of the little swirly cloud right up around the corner of the house. That was pretty wild. Then our actual second show was Phantom Phone Calls. And at the time I had not long started my new job and was getting these weird phone calls at work on my new phone. I mean, my work phone. One time, all you could hear was somebody riding a horse and hear everything jingle. As you could hear the clop, clop, clop of the hoofs, and you could hear the tack jingle. Mm-hmm. Another time, it was like a train. And another time, it sounded like somebody was dragging. I mean, Dagny said it sounded like somebody dragging a body in a bag, just weird stuff. And Beth had a situation where she was investigating across the road from her house. She sent us the videos where she was, they were videoing, and she just asked the question like we always do, is there somebody here that wants to communicate with us? And her phone rang immediately with no caller ID, number withheld. And she went to answer it, and there was nobody there. So that was pretty wild. Then in our third show was where everybody got to meet Lewis Powell IV and Southern Spirit Guide, and he came on to share us some stories of all over the South. And Lewis, anything special about that show that stands out to you?
I'm trying to remember.
It was a long time ago. Wow.
Yes. I'm sorry. My brain is still not totally awake at the moment.
I understand. Not a problem. But that was our first show. We went over all those stories. Then we went into Beware the Black Hat, where we compounded on Tommy's story and talked about some other figures, shadow figures that have been seen. And then we had our first ghost hunting show called Did You Hear That? Had Kent Rasmussen on. Then we talked about the Stick Man. Then Tim brought this one to us early on, where people have been seeing these 2-dimensional stick figures documented. He's had a couple documented in Topeka, right, Tim?
We've got a total of 6 now that have been documented in the city of Topeka. 4 of them include calls to the Shawnee County Sheriff's Office.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And they're seeing these two-dimensional things around the globe.
Right.
And then we went to How Big the Foot, where Tim and I talked about different Bigfoot sightings. We're supposed to have Jonathan Odom of Alabama Bigfoot and Paranormal on to talk about some of these, but he had a family emergency just before the show started. So Tim and I just sit there and watch the Patterson Gimlin film over and over again. I had found a version of where they had stabilized it and worked on the focus, and it was a lot cleaner and a lot clearer. So we kept going back over and over. And I think that's what most of the show was, us just rewatching that video and talking about it. Then we went into our second show. Did you hear that, on ghost hunting? I think we had Al Luna in with that one, and Kent Rasmussen, if I remember correctly, talking about some more ghost hunting techniques. Then Beware the Black-Eyed Kids, one of the creepiest shows we've done so far, talking about black-eyed kid sightings. It's a playlist on YouTube, and it's just called Strange Journey Season 1. And you can just go into the playlist and say play all, and it'll play one right after the other. They're horrible at the beginning because I didn't know, not that they're great now. Okay. They're getting better. All right. But those first few, I was watching them today. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe this. But we went on and did it anyway. And then one that I had been wanting to do, the abduction show.
Right.
Oh, that was just, to me, well, we focused on the Pascagoula abductions in 1974. Had a friend of mine on that owned a studio back in that day, and actually had Charlie Hickson in that was abducted there, and he recorded Charlie Hickson's story on vinyl, and they released it. He did the official recording for Charlie Hickson and telling about his memories of the media hounding him and all that kind of stuff that went on. And we also did, Tim, my mind went blank. Fire in the Sky movie.
Fire in the Sky. I'm trying to think. Travis Walton.
Yeah, Travis Walton.
What happened with him in the White Mountains of Arizona?
Right.
When he was abducted would be 1972 or 73. I don't remember which anymore.
Somewhere in there. Which they made a movie of it called Fire in the Sky. There's also a documentary on Prime about it.
Right.
And there's a new, within the last year or two, a new video about the Pascagoula abductions on Calvin Parker's side of the story. All those years we heard Charlie Hickson's side of the Pascagoula abductions. And just recently, Calvin Parker has come out with his. Excuse me. So that was a fun show to do, just going over that. And then we did our part 3 series on ghost hunting. Did you hear that? And we had Darren Huff in to talk about some gadgets. And then we had Lewis back for Spirits on Stage, where we talked about haunted theaters. And I remember Lewis telling about what was it, a watch? No, a purse. A purse that had gone missing.
Well, it was it was a purse that had gone missing, and then I was with a guy who I was working on a book with at the Springer Opera House in Columbus, Georgia. Right. And we decided to go looking for this antique purse. And I came back and walked to the box I had been going through. And lo and behold, there is an antique purse with a pocket watch sitting right inside.
Wow.
And never figured out where the stuff came from. It was not the purse we were looking for, but it was a different antique purse.
Wow.
Just a very strange moment.
That was cool. That was cool. And he had a bunch of other stories too. And we talked about ghost lights, which are not necessarily paranormal. They could be linked to the paranormal, I guess, if you stretched it. But we had a season 1 retrospective, and then we came back with our holiday shows, Krampus Kills, where we told some creepy Krampus stories, and then our Angel Among Us Christmas show, where we talked about some actual angel sightings. I shared my personal story, which may or may not have been an angel, but without going into the story again, I was in the Caribbean and had fallen into the bay and was trying to get up into a sailboat that the ladder had been cut off, literally cut off. And so the little stobs on it had little pointed edges, the aluminum, and I was cutting my hands trying to pull myself up until I had basically exhausted myself. And I was, for lack of, without making it too dramatic, I was drowning. I was going down in the water in the Caribbean and had just accepted the fact, I'm done. This is it. Tom's life is over, and what a way to go in the waters of the Caribbean, I guess. And the next thing I knew, I woke up on deck of the sailboat. I don't know how I got there. I just woke up soaking wet on the floor of the sailboat. Who knows? May have been an angel, may not have been. We took our break and we went to, where's it at? Let me go back to, I'm trying to get back over here. Where's my playlist? I'm in my channel, so it's showing all the extra stuff, but yeah, there it is, playlist. And then we're on season 2 now. We started off. Yeah, we're going backwards. That was our first show with Elizabeth, was Fairy Tales. And she brought a unique insight into fairies, things that I never knew. And, she talked about her hairy fairies. I shouldn't be doing that. Leave that there. She talked about her hairy fairies and leaving offerings out for the fairies. Mm-hmm. And one you talked about there, I want to talk about later. But tell us real quick about being at the friend's house and you saw the fairies.
Well, yeah, it's more of a perception thing, a psychic perception of them. I got the picture of them in my head. I did not see them as physical forms that time. But I was at a friend's house and we were in her front living room in the evening having a meeting. And during the course of the meeting, I was so distracted because these crazy little things kept rushing up from the yard onto her front porch and pressing their faces against the glass to see what we were doing.
Wow.
And I think what was most interesting to me about that show, Tom, was being able to share how many different types of fairies there are, and how it's not all Walt Disney. There's a whole lot of levels of realities of what we call the Fae out there.
Exactly. And Andrea sent in a video of her seeing some fairies, and she's hoping to be able to come in for a few minutes today just to meet you, Elizabeth, because what you shared on the show just affected her profoundly. And she was so excited about you being back here today, so she could meet you. But she had some family stuff going on. She's trying to get cleared up and hopefully can join us later.
Okay.
But, okay. Are we on? Did I miss sharing season 2? No, I'm not sharing season 2. What's going on here? I'm still trying to learn this program. Let's see. Share screen. Yep. Channel playlist. There it is. Yeah. All right. Fairy tales, then Seeing Double, where we talked about doppelgangers. Lay of the Land, where we had Julie and Gordon on, because it's still not sharing. What's going on here? All right, let me get this figured out. Sorry, guys. So as bad as it was when we started, I'm still having issues. All right, there we go. Let's see. Season 2 so far. We're on our 10th show, Seeing Double, Lay of the Land with Julianne Gordon, Bridges of Sorrows. Lewis was back with us on that, and Will Elric, who wrote the book about Alabama folklore.
Right.
Elizabeth was back for Fairy Tales 2, Leprechauns. Then we spent some time with Tim on our first Strange Authors, where we talked about his books and some of the strange stories that abound in Kansas.
Right.
And this one wasn't paranormal or supernatural, but it just struck me as pretty wild that the Russian princess, we all called her, Anastasia, may have been in Kansas for a time. Real quick, tell us about that.
About the same time period as the Bolshevik Revolution, there was actually a group of Russians. There is a little area in Topeka still called Little Russia, where lots of Russian immigrants moved in during that time period. But this group separated themselves. They actually moved about 2 miles west of the city on what is now Huntoon Boulevard. And they built 2 huge, mansions sitting up there on the hill, one of which has minuet towers on it. And whenever they would come into town, there was always a young girl that would have been about Anastasia's age that was with them. But the men, anytime somebody started to approach her, the men would step into the way and would place their hands on the pistols. It's Kansas. That's normal here in Kansas for them to be carrying it. But they just suddenly disappeared. County sheriff's officers went out there. There was a lot of blood at the site. No bodies that they could find, but there are actually escape tunnels out of one of the mansions that go about a mile in every direction, so they could get out from underneath the mansion if something was going on.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
and just the possibility that Anastasia was in Kansas. That's pretty cool. Then we had John and Andrea on talking about the Grave Hunter Society and how they. This was pretty cool. They had found the birth certificate of this young baby in the back of an antique store inside this fancy frame, and they began digging and everything, and they began looking into this baby's life and found out all about his life. And I think it was his brother, though, actually, that went on and accomplished a bunch of things. And his grave marker had been lost, and they did some more researching and stuff, and actually went to the graveyard and actually had to dig down about 6 or 8 inches, and they found this man's grave marker. Just from researching it. It'd been covered up all these years. I mean, it wasn't anything spectacular, but like they say, not everybody wants to be famous, but no one wants to be forgotten. So they were able to find this man's gravestone. I thought that was so amazing. Then we talked about the boom boom. It's all about the boom boom. These booms have been heard throughout history. James Fenimore Cooper wrote about it. Meriwether Lewis wrote about it in the journals of the Lewis and Clark expedition. And they've been happening here recently as well. I showed a news clip from here in Mobile where a seismologist at the university showed the big screen with the seismograph on there, and he showed a spike right in the middle, and he said this event caused the ground to shake. Mm-hmm. not that the ground shook and caused an event, but whatever this now loud noise was loud enough and big enough that it shook the ground. And the Air Force and Navy, they all claim that there were no flyovers. Geologists say there was no tectonic or seismological movement. Meteorologists say there was no cloud formations that could have caused a loud thunderclap. So who knows? It was just unique to go over some of the different ones. And then last show was 40 Wax, the Lizzie Borden story. And we just found out, or I just found out, that Elizabeth herself is what she calls a Lizzie file.
I can't believe I missed that one, but I'm happy it's recorded, so I can go
Yes,
back and listen.
right.
You can.
So, yeah.
We were all across the board and everything, but it was fun. And you know, I may be reading too much into this, but you know how your brain gets stuck on something and you can't just place your finger on it. It's just like you're going around and around. Ever since that show, that tune has been running through my head. You know, Lizzie Borden took an axe. And the thing with what's going on in my head, it's putting the father first. And that's intriguing me for some reason. You know, when my brain goes through the tune, it goes, Lizzie Borden took an axe, gave her father 40 whacks. And then I'll stop myself and say, no, that's not the way it goes. It's the mother. But my brain keeps going back to the father first. And I don't know if subconsciously I'm trying to put something together there or not. It's just kind of weird, you know. But I keep going back to the blood. Where was the blood? Yeah, it was not on her at all. I mean, all of the witnesses, well, let's just say it this way. None of the witnesses could testify to any blood being seen on Lizzie. And like I stated before, as messy as those murders were, she would have had it in her hair, in her ears, in her nostrils, all over her face, in her fingernails. She wouldn't have been able to hide it.
Right.
So that's just me. Oh, and Andrea brought up something after the show. I told her my brain would not have gone there, but she said corsets. That Lizzie regularly, just like any of the women in that day and age, wore corset. And she didn't feel like, having worn a corset all those years, that Lizzie would have had the core strength to be able to swing an axe, a hatchet, that many times.
Right.
Had y'all ever thought about that? I didn't.
No.
Well, if you're mad enough,
Well, true.
and if you get them down,
Yeah.
she had them down. She came upon stepmother from the back,
Right.
and then father was
Andrew.
browsing on the sofa.
Mm-hmm.
So all the momentum and force was going downward.
True.
So and it was a little hatchet. It wasn't a big axe.
Right.
It
Right.
was a hatchet. It was a lady-sized sharp instrument. So I think I definitely see what she's talking about. If it had been a big axe to swing that big thing, but I don't know. Passion can fuel you, make you pretty strong. If those mothers can lift cars off their kids that have gotten run over, you know.
That is true. And Kent brought up the point of jealousy and rage.
Right.
That if jealousy can push you into rage, and so I mean there is all these possibilities, and like I said on that show, Lizzie was the only viable suspect. You know, she was the only person that was actually there and had means and motive. Had been seen using an axe. Was seen a couple of days later burning a dress. Now, whether or not that dress had blood on it, nobody stated. So it was just an amazing show as far as all the stuff we talked about. And then, oh crap, do I have it? Yes. And then this happened. Cat's meow is heard. The cat is still friendly and rubs. Oh, wait a minute. I just heard a cat. Did you
heard
hear
it.
that?
I heard it.
That as we were talking about cats, and Tim had shared earlier in the show about a recent paranormal sighting where he saw his ghost cat.
Mm-hmm.
And then here at that part of the show, we're talking about cats being heard in the Lizzie Borden house. We hear a cat.
Right, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So that's actually, we put that on our TikTok channel. If anybody does TikTok and wants to go over there and see that again, we put that up over there along with a few other videos. And so I just thought that was wild. Now I was telling Tim, Tim, was it you or Kent saying that during the show y'all had some kids outside playing?
The grandkids were here.
Oh, okay. Well, I took that audio clip and went into Audacity with it just that little bit. And when I slowed it down to about half speed, it sounded like little kids. But at regular speed, to me, it sounded like a cat. I'm sorry. It just sounded like a cat to me.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, now that brings us up to today, Strange Authors 2. Tim, you want to take us into Strange Authors?
All right. I'm pulling up my outline here somewhere.
Oh,
Maybe.
maybe. I'm
I was
skipping a
just
whole bunch
having
of
so much
stuff.
fun listening. So
Oh, yeah. Okay. I'm skipping a few things.
I
We're
know
going to go
yeah.
right into the show now.
All right. Well, I do know that we've got Elizabeth with us. She didn't need to be introduced just because she has been one of our regulars, as well as one of the watchers. She's been with us here a couple times now, but we're actually here for her books because she is an author.
All right. Play the intro.
Play what intro?
Her intro. Her intro.
Her intro.
I have an intro?
Yes.
Yes, you do.
Did you find it?
There's this cat. Thank you very much.
All right, Tim, finish that part and then I'll read that next section.
All right. So she's got 3 books that she has done here, beginning with Mobile Ghost, Alabama's Haunted Port City, Mobile Ghost 2, The Waterline, and a compilation of her previously published stories through Haunted America, and then Haunted Mobile, Apparitions of the Azalea City. Elizabeth is
Go ahead.
all right. As a psychic medium, Elizabeth focuses on helping those with people problems. She is that's an interesting way to put it.
Yep.
She is also a Reiki master, reads tarot, and is the voice and hand behind Polly's Fancy European Tarot on Facebook and YouTube, with a weekly full moon and new moon energy readings posted each month to help readers and viewers navigate the changing energies of fate.
Mhm.
Elizabeth has a foundation and practice in natural magic and paganism, and brings this perspective to her work with ghosts sorting out the energy of people, places, and things. She was our special guest on the first show of this season, Fairy Tales, as well as a later show, Fairy Tales 2, which was Leprechauns, sharing her experiences and knowledge of the little people with us.
And those were amazing shows. We do appreciate you sharing your insight there.
Really
Now,
fun.
Elizabeth writes in the introduction to her book, Mobile Ghost of Alabama's Haunted Port City, why ghosts? She says, if I had a nickel for every time I was asked that question over the past year and a half, I would be writing this introduction from a mahogany desk in a bungalow overlooking the ocean in the Bahamas. The simplest answer is I love ghosts. I can't remember when I wasn't fascinated by them or perplexed by their exact nature. The ghosts I personally encountered. Okay, we're getting some background noise somewhere. Somebody could mute. Okay. She says, I love ghosts. I can't remember when I wasn't fascinated by them or perplexed by their exact nature. The ghosts I've personally encountered have only deepened my curiosity. Further, there was no book devoted solely to Mobile ghosts, and that was a shame. Other prominent southern cities have books recounting their ghostly tales and legends, so why not Mobile? Our city is hundreds of years old with a unique history and population. I figured there had to be wonderful stories attached to Mobile's beautiful old buildings and lands, and rather than waiting any longer, I would just do it myself. And we're so glad you did. Your books have meant a lot to the paranormal community in Mobile, in the surrounding area. I've mentioned this before, but on the tour, like Lewis told you early on before we went live, you know, that he used you as a resource. We did as well on the tours. But and every time that we told a story, we'd say that was from Elizabeth's book, whichever one we took it from, you know, and encourage people to go buy the books. Oh, you know what? I just remembered something that I've been meaning to tell you, Elizabeth, for since before the last show. I was going everywhere trying to find the water line. I finally ended up just ordering it offline. I wanted to buy it locally, but I couldn't find it anywhere. But I was talking to that little bookstore. It's tucked up in the corner there to Zaya and Government.
Mm-hmm.
What is it? Mobile Bookshop or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And the owner wants you to come by there and share your books.
I will do that. I
Yeah.
hesitate to. I have the books because I
Yeah.
indie published them.
Right.
So I can have all you want. But when the compilation came out, there's you kind of don't want people to buy the old books thinking that they're getting something new.
Right.
And then be disappointed and say, "Oh, I've already read these. They're in
I understand.
they're in apparitions of these." People,
Yeah.
I just don't want anybody to be disappointed. So
Yeah.
I kind of hang back on any further selling those books because I don't want people to think that they're new and then be sad.
Right. I understand.
So.
And but I think the owner knows, about the two books or whatever. But he said, please have her get in touch with me and come
Okay.
by. And he said we would, and he wants to have you there on location, do a book signing and stuff like that.
That's very
So
nice. I appreciate
was
that.
like-
Thank you for
I was-
telling me.
Okay. Yeah. And I had forgotten. I just
Okay.
remembered that.
I'll make a note right now.
Okay. Yeah. I thought that was, because he got so excited. He was like, Elizabeth Parker, we've been wanting to find her.
Listen, all you got to do is put me in Facebook or the Google or
Yeah.
whatever, and I'm not that hard to find.
Oh, I
but,
know.
But apparently,
know.
I am that hard to find because I never hear from anybody. So I am a kind of a ghost. So
Oh, wow. All right. Well, we do want to do kind of a little interview first before we start talking ghost stories. And we want to, I know in talking to you, you said you're your outlook has kind of changed a little bit since you wrote the first 2 books. So
Mhm.
you'll touch on those and some ghost stories there, because there was a couple that just really intrigued me. But we want you to share some things that's been going on. That all right, Tim's got to be right back, and he signed in under me. So when he turns off his camera, my picture pops up.
It's a doppelganger show
Yeah,
again.
I guess so. Well, and Lewis, feel free to chime in if you want to ask her a question. But
All right.
we know, Elizabeth, you have a reputation in this area, and it's a good one, by the way. I don't want that to sound
good.
bad. Of having a strong sense of the paranormal and supernatural, and I know every person I know in the paranormal community in Mobile highly respects you, and
Thank you.
and everybody from Mark over at Deep South Paranormal, or James at Haunted, and then the other groups. My mind's going blank right now. They're all like Elizabeth Parker,
Oh, I appreciate that.
and
Thank you.
it's awesome. But nobody ever talks about how you got started. What got you interested in the paranormal, and when did your journey into the paranormal supernatural begin?
Well, it's kind of like becoming a baker because you want to eat a lot of cake. I wrote the books because I desperately wanted to know the stories, because I love the ghost stories. So
Wow.
the way I could get my ghost story fix was, okay, if I got to elbow in there and try to find them myself, I will, because I knew they had to be here.
Yeah.
And we had a lot of tales and things from Mrs. Wyndham and
Right.
folk tales and things like that, but we didn't have any really good, accounts from people who had ghost encounters personally in their homes or in their businesses. Like a lot of your guests that you've had over the life of this podcast, everything for me started when I was a child, seeing things and hearing things. And you have to remember, though, reading as you did from my intro from that book, when people kept saying, why did you write a book about ghosts?
Yeah.
You have to remember, when I wrote the book, the first book, ghosts were not what they are now. If you write a book about ghosts now, people are like, oh, cool, because ghosts have become such a part of our culture and so accepted. You can turn on the TV any minute of any day and find a paranormal show or a ghost show. But when I was a kid growing up and when I wrote these books, it was not a thing yet. It was right on the edge of it becoming a popular in culture.
Mm-hmm.
So I grew up with having experiences and not being able to talk about them because it made you the weird kid.
Right.
And I didn't want to be any weirder than I already was and already felt. So I just kept that to myself. And eventually I began to shut out those experiences because it was weird and it was not right. You weren't right. I just wanted to be normal.
Right.
I just wanted to be normal and not get kicked off the island and fit in. So I shut all that stuff down, and then kept my interest, of course, in ghosts and what little I could find when you could find books and TV shows occasionally on it. But got a window to write these books when my kids had just gotten into school, and I kind of had a little wiggle room in my schedule. So
Right.
with the help of terrific people who would introduce me, one story would introduce me to another story. It was very word of mouth, because if you just went out there and said, I'm collecting these, people thought you were really weird, and they did not want to talk about it, at
Tim
least
knows.
not publicly.
Tim
Right?
knows.
So it's made a sea change.
Tim and Lewis both